Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this P99 conference session with me, Leandro, also known as your amigo El Señor Performo, ready to bring you today a very cool presentation. Today, I'm going to bring you a talk where I'm going to give you an introduction into observability so that the ones that are not so familiar with the principles, the terms, the pillars, and the concepts can get a better grasp on it and get better into their observability practices. So, before I go into the topic, I would like to talk to you a little bit about me. As I mentioned earlier, I am also known as Señor Performo. I am Leandro Melendez, and I am a presenter. I am a professional in performance testing and observability. I've been around several companies for several decades now. I also have a couple of YouTube channels. Feel free to like, subscribe, and everything. Look for Señor Performo. There's ENG in English or ESP, Español, if you like to practice your Spanish. And, well, why I like P99s, they are really good to give you a big picture where you can distill some of those bogus metrics that sometimes pop up here and there that might not be that relevant. But in general, you can get with P99s a very good representation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, something that I like a lot, that's how I ended up creating that YouTube channel, those YouTube channels, is I like a lot about video production, audio engineering, and creating content. And, well, some other interesting topics about me is that I love to read. I'm a very big bookworm. I like to hike. Walking around, especially on nature, gives you fresh thoughts, right? Clears up the mind. And last, I am a stock market buff. I like investing stuff, look at companies, do valuations, ETFs, and check all those type of things. Enough of me. I want to get to talk today into what is observability or OLLY. Well, it's not truly OLLY, OLLY, but it's O11Y. What? So some of us are kind of lazy, and when we talk about observability, we like to shorten up things. So if you see the word observability, you remove the O, you remove the Y, and in between you have 11 letters. So O, 11 letters, and Y. And it looks like OLLY. So that's why we call it that way. But other than describing it or giving the weird names that it's known for in the media, let's go and give a quick definition of what truly is observability. So, an actual definition of observability. Dictionary-wise, you will find this on the internet. Observability is the ability to deduce the internal states of a system from information available externally. It's a mouthful, right? Fancy words, fancy things that probably don't make too much sense to many. As I mentioned, it's also known as OLLY, as you can see there below, but there's much more to that. What does all this mumbo jumbo mean? Well, in easier terms, observability to me is the capacity for you to understand what is the status of something. Let's think of the status of your car without going in front of it, lifting the hood, checking, putting your finger probably in the oil to check how full it is, how hot it is, touching it. We don't want to do those things, right? We want to automatically be able to understand what is going on with our car. And not only with our car, with many systems. I'm showing you here some examples like that hated by many check engine light, where it tells you there's something wrong inside of your car without you having to get off and lift the hood and see why it is smoking. Probably you will see this way before it is smoking. As well, another capacity of observability is to see the resource consumption of your car. What do I mean? How much gasoline it has consumed. How far are you from running out of this precious resource, and to be able to keep moving. But if you are not into cars, another good example that I like to give about observability is weather apps that you will get in your mobile phones. They are super useful because you don't have to go out there and check, is it cold out there? I'm going to go out, check, and come back if I need a sweater. No, you can just quickly pull it up and see what is the weather out there. If it's windy, if it's raining, if it's going to rain, without lifting the hood of your house and getting out there. This is also very useful if you want to know the weather of a remote location. You don't have to get to that remote location. You have observability into many other places. And how do we get it? There are some components that we need to get. And we will get observability not only on our, as I showed you, our cars or on the weather. We're thinking more on observability around our systems, right? So there are 4 elements. Some might say only 3, but I like to divide them in 4 to get observability in our systems. First, we need telemetry. Then we need instrumentation. The one that some may be pondering around here is storage. And the 4th is monitoring. So let's go around what's each one of this, right? Telemetry, as you can see here, is a capacity that we are going to get of providing a distant transmission of the state of the thing that we are interested in knowing. Here, an interesting example is some stinky shoes that someone may have worn, and you can tell from a distance, like, oh, wow, I know the status of those shoes, right? Without getting close. But this situation of knowing the status at a distance doesn't happen automatically. Well, sometimes with the shoes, yes, and that's a big situation. But with systems that we want to know at a distance that status, we need to implement step 2, which is instrumentation. Think of it of installing a device, a line of code, something that will enable this transmission of the situation of the thing that we want to monitor. One example that I like a lot is with these smart devices, Internet of Things devices or monitoring devices, we're instrumenting ourselves. So I am installing this on my body so that it will transmit what is the heartbeat, how much this señor is walking or not walking sometimes, and many other things that will transmit the situation. You can think also on installing sensors on, let's say, your car's elements so that you can watch them on the dashboard. The sensors have the capacity to measure and transmit. So that's the act of instrumentation. You put something that checks and tells you, right? Now, there are 2 situations where we may have these needs for observability. One, maybe, I don't know, like the weather that I was talking earlier. I just care about the weather right now. So it's for going out. I don't need to store it. I don't need to know what happened a month ago, weather-wise, what was the temperature, if it rained. So in those cases, I may not need storage. I just need the information. But some other cases, let's think about the stock market to store what has been the situation observed in your system. You may want to keep track of that, and you may need to store it. That's super important. Aside of examples, think of logs, situations that happened in your system. Well, you may want to keep them to analyze what happened in the past. Traces, I'm getting ahead a little bit, but these diagnostics that will help you into solving some problems. Not only that, if you want to also make predictions, back to the weather, I don't care what was the weather a month ago, but a meteorologist may want to say, hey, yeah, I have all the history in weathers, temperatures, winds, precipitation, air pressure, all those things, so I can do a prediction into the future, what is going to happen. There you may want it, and then for that, you need storage. Now, the last component of observability is monitoring, a visualization. It's a way in which us, human beings, get shiny pictures to make us understand the numbers that have been captured. Going back to the weather, if we didn't have like the little icon of the sun and 20 something Celsius, or what would be that, 70 something Fahrenheit, you wouldn't know. If I just gave you like Kelvin temperatures, or I don't know, millimeters of mercury in your thermometer for the pressure. No, you need to translate into something that is more useful. Similar to the consumption of your RAM, probably you don't want to know exactly how many bits are available in the RAM in your system. You may just want to know what is the percentage that I have consumed. So for this, we connect human understandable visualizations into our data or the metrics that we got, because we can store the data and then visualize it, or we can just visualize it live. So it's important that we have that last component. An example that I love to give, back to the car example, probably if there are not that many car enthusiasts here, I don't think you have to be, as long as you have driven a car. We have the tires. And in the past, I had to stop at a gas station and ask for help or get the device and check what was the pressure. So sometimes someone will be like, hey, dude, your tires are low. Oh, thank you, I didn't know. But with observability, we can get some instrumentation and telemetry by installing inside of the tire a sensor. Many modern cars come up with these sensors, which will measure the pressure of the air inside of the tire and send this information to your car's CPU or even memory. There are some things, probably the tire pressure, you don't want historic measurements for that. You just want to know right now if it's okay. And if it's not, to go and pump some air into it. But let's say gas. You may not need to know what was the gas fuel for yesterday, but storing it will help you to calculate what is the efficiency of the gas of your car. Some of those things that are useful. Once this lands inside of the CPU of our car, because modern cars have CPUs and computers inside, it's transmitted into the dashboard, the monitoring platform that you have behind the wheel, so where you can tell what things are happening. So I hope this example clears up a little bit. Here is a more technical example of things that you may be looking to do into your observability journey. So we have, let's say, servers, hardware, platforms, software installed with programming languages, some other different things, or even testing automations that you can instrument and get telemetry out of them. You can install an agent. There are client libraries. You can manually also like, hey, check this record, send it somewhere so that I can understand what is happening, transmit that through an HTTP message, and then store it in some traditional databases. Like, of course, you can store it here on Scylla, but you have also other alternatives, Prometheus, Influx, Splunk, many, many others, where you can store this information to then use it and visualize it. There are so many platforms that are awesome for visualization. Grafana is one of them, open source, free to use, and easy to configure. It connects to almost all these data sources, databases, and also some agents and some client libraries directly, so that you don't have to configure more things, or you can just like, bring me that tire pressure directly. Boom, Grafana shows you. There are many other visualizing platforms like Kibana, Honeycomb, Splunk, many. So here are some mentions. I personally like Grafana more because it's easier, open source, and straightforward. But feel free. The important part here is that you have a way to visualize what is happening in your systems, right? Now, observability, or OLI, depends on some pillars. There are some also debates on what are the pillars, but the standard conception is that we have 3 pillars in observability. I mean, just 3. I just put both hands. I don't know why. We have logs, metrics, and traces. The 3 pillars of observability. I keep doing it with both hands. Now, logs. Logs are event registries. Something happened. Take a note on that. Some other thing happened. Take a note on that. What do we put on those notes? Lots of information. It can be where it comes from. Important, what time? Time and date. Important, super, super important. And then you can add whatever you want. It was a problem. We carried a bag of beans. We offloaded these. Someone jumped inside of the boat. In other words, we have a lot of plain text in our logs. Because of this, it's not so easy to index, but it's super useful when you're looking to clear up a problem, a defect, or when you have a situation. It's very good because it has lots of information. As you can tell, they are thick, not so easy to navigate, but they are really, really useful when you need them. They are really, really useful as well when you have some situations with banking data, health data, some things that when you have a regulatory institution wanting like, hey, I want to see exactly what happened in your system. Oh, sure, I have lots of logs. Go and have fun. That's super important. The next pillar is the metrics. On the metrics, it's just values, numbers, status, like pass, fail, true, false, things like are more unitary. Mostly, as I said, it's numbers, a percentage, a quantity, temperature, minus, plus. We have all sorts of numbers. Generally, no text. We use text to label them, but the value generally is not text. We try to get away from that situation with the metrics. They are faster because you're just looking for numbers. They are kind of easier to index. You can, again, add these labels, add these situations, and they are easier, kind of more efficient to store than logs, because with logs you have lots of text, and with metrics, here's your number. Easy, right? But numbers by themselves do not tell you much. Here's your metric. It's a 9. Cool. And 9 what? $9? 9 Fahrenheit? That's cold. Is it good? Is it bad? If you don't have a context for those metrics, you can get lost easily. So that's kind of like a downside, but you can put together the whole picture. And last, we have the traces, which, if the metrics didn't tell you much, the traces put a story together inside of a span. Think of it like a block of events that you want to focus on. You can mix inside of this logs, metrics, and put together, mix them, link them through some sort of identification, and you can understand the big picture of what happened. But since you're putting together a lot of stuff with the traces, they tend to take a lot of space, and they are not as efficient to keep everything. So generally with traces, you try to focus on interesting spans, interesting moments in time. Oh, there was a defect. Oh yeah, we just saved what happened in the span, logs, metrics, and all the situations for that moment. Everything else, it was working well. I don't care. Why waste time, right? Now the tools. There are many, many tools that you can use for each one of these things. For instrumentation, as I mentioned, the first step, you can use client libraries, where there are multiple elements that will provide client libraries for your language, for your programming suite. What are you using? Even for some kernels that you can use Prometheus to expose those metrics. OpenTelemetry also will send some of these. You have eBPF and many, many more things that are coming. You also have agents, things that you can install in your machines, in your devices, and automatically will bring all the metrics and interesting things. They are kind of cool because they do most of the hard work. You just install, run, and it's ready. It pulled everything from everywhere. We have Grafana has an agent called Alloy, which you can install, and yeah, you will get lots of information and observability from that device where you're installing it. Datadog has one too. AppDynamics has one too. Dynatrace has one too, and many more are coming with agents. So that's another cool thing where you can quickly get information from your systems. Now to store it, well, we have Scylla. We can, as I mentioned earlier, you can store the information there. We have InfluxDB. Prometheus stores metrics only. Grafana has, for all the 3 pillars, if you want to store, you have Loki for logs, Mimir for metrics, and Tempo for traces. So you can use whatever you want. Some of these storage platforms will allow you, or they excel in some specific type of metrics or logs. One per pillar, right? But some of them will be good at most of it. But yeah, you gotta be careful what you choose. It's super important. And again, so many platforms will allow you to store and work through this. And last, to visualize. Now, once you connect and get the information, you can use Grafana. Again, it's awesome to create the dashboards, panels, visualizations, pie charts, bar charts, gauges, even maps, all the stuff that you may need. Elastic has Kibana, which also allows you to do visualizations. Dynatrace also has dashboards, Datadog. Almost all these platforms will give you an option. Cool thing, Grafana, I like it a lot because it's open source free and you can just start playing with it without much problem, right? Just as we ramp down on this session, keep in mind with observability, you gotta be careful with it. Because if you are not careful and you can go a little bit, you get metrics, everybody gets metrics and logs and traces, and you can end up drowning in observability. Don't put it on everything. Be wise on where are you using it. Measure what is indispensable, what is important, what will give a benefit to your organization. And don't drown in it. Again, with the example in your car, you are not watching the gas tank all the time. You are not just like, okay, it's full, it's still full. You just want an alert to blimp like, beam, go to the gas station. You are now on the reserve. Configure alerts. When there's something outstanding, configure alerts, but be careful with the alerts. Going back to the cars, when you don't put your seatbelt, bling, 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 bling. I know. I'm working give me 10 seconds and I put my freaking belt. With alerts, you can get over alerted, pull SREs and pull operations people like, hey, this is failing. Hey, this is failing again. Too many failures. We want to be careful with that. For this, we can use the power of SLOs and SLAs. If you want to get deeper into this, I have a full talk on how to figure the correct SLOs and SLAs to focus on, but they are a huge weapon for observability. Now, one thing that is really cool and super important about observability, you gotta make sure that it's available and accessible to everyone in your team and organization. Everyone must be able to easily get into it, understand it, and make use of it. Should be like the cornerstone of your teams to have it at hand. Again, not to be all the time looking at it and worrying about it, but when something happens, it's there and everyone can see it and everyone knows what it means. And well, this brief introduction into observability, I hope this sounded good or looked good. No, that this observed good, that you got good observability of it. I don't know. I need to work more on that word game. But I hope that you enjoyed this talk. I hope that you learned a lot out of it. And I thank you very much for tuning in for this session. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. It is me, Leandro, your amigo, also known as Señor Performo. If you want to follow up with me, there's a QR code that you can get in touch, subscribe, like, get into my channels, shoot me a message, any question, anything that you may need. I'm always really happy and willing to help. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I hope that you enjoyed the rest of the talks for the day. This is Leandro Melendez, Señor Performo, out. Adiós.